The story begins with 4 young people rafting in the rough waters of West Virginia. Among them are Alex, a smart girl who will be fundamental to the story, Sophie, Brent, and Trey. The atmosphere is super relaxed. They're having a great time going down the rapids. When they decide to stop to rest on the riverbank, Sophie decides to take advantage of the sun and takes off her shirt, going topless. She even teases Alex to do the same, but the girl responds that she's not that type of person. Soon after, Brent arrives looking for Trey, explaining that his friend went to get firewood to make a campfire. Alex realizes that Sophie and Brent want to be alone. After all, they're a couple, so she decides to go after Trey. As soon as she walks away, Sophie sits on her boyfriend's lap, but while the couple is there in that moment, something terrible happens. An arrow pierces through Sophie's chest and also goes through Brent's hand. Who shot it? None other than 3 Finger. Sophie starts screaming desperately for help, but Brent simply runs away like a coward. The camera shows Alex hiding, watching horrified as 3 Finger hits Sophie with another arrow and then rips out her eye with his bare hands to devour it. Meanwhile, Trey returns carrying the firewood he went to get, but 3 Finger grazes him with an arrow. The guy runs desperately through the woods until he trips and falls to the ground. When he turns his face trying to get up, 3 Finger appears and sticks a sharp stake through his mouth from one side to the other. The scene is truly brutal soon after. Brent continues fleeing through the forest but ends up stepping on a trap that literally cuts him into 3 parts. 3 Finger wastes no time and goes there to taste the fresh meat. Hey! What would you do if you were lost in a forest full of deformed cannibals hunting you like you were an animal? The movie I'm going to summarize is called Wr0ng Turn 3: Left for Dead. It's an American film that combines horror, adventure, and action. This movie is one of my favorites in the saga. Despite being quite heavy and having very tense scenes, it's a very good movie. So I invite you to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and leave a like to receive the best recaps. We're taken to Grafton Penitentiary, also in West Virginia. There we meet Nate, a young guard who's about to fulfill his dream of becoming a lawyer. He's on his last day of work and plans a brilliant career, dreaming of making lots of money and living comfortably in Manhattan, maybe even retiring in Miami. Along with Nate, we meet Walter, his friend and co-worker, plus Preslow, another guard. During a conversation in the locker rooms, Walter questions Nate's obsession with money, but the young man makes it clear that he believes financial success comes first. Then he'll think about doing volunteer work. This phrase, "money isn't everything," always makes me think. It usually comes from 2 extremes, either from those who already have a lot and discovered it really isn't everything, or from those who never had it and gave up trying. You rarely hear this from someone in the middle, you know? The prison director calls Nate for an urgent meeting. There he discovers something important. There's a police officer disguised as a prisoner named Willie. This guy is undercover precisely to watch over the transfer of Chavez, a dangerous criminal who was planning to escape in a week along with Floyd. Since they discovered the plan, they decided to move up the transfer to that same night. Using a secret route that only a few people know about, the director makes it clear that only Nate should know Willie's true identity. This is to gain Chavez's trust during the journey. When they inform Chavez about the change in plans, he's clearly suspicious after all. The transfer would only be next week, but he has no choice. He has to accept. In the containment sector, Nate chains up all the prisoners who will be transferred. Besides Chavez and Willie, we have Crawford, an arrogant car thief, and Brandon, a guy who killed someone in a bar fight. The prisoners board the bus along with Nate, Walter, and Preslow, and the trip begins during the journey. Willie complains about traveling at night, but Chavez tells him to shut up. Meanwhile, Walter asks about Nate's future plans after graduating in law. Nate explains his plan in detail. He wants to work in a lucrative area that allows him to buy a house in Manhattan. For him, ensuring financial stability is a priority. Then he'll think about helping others. Walter questions this vision so focused on money, but Nate defends that he wants a comfortable life and a peaceful retirement in Miami. The bus makes a stop at a small police station along the way. There we meet Sheriff Carver and Officer Ali. Carver recognizes Nate immediately, remembering he hasn't seen him since he was a child. Nate asks about Leon, the sheriff's dog, and discovers the animal is still alive at 14 years old. After this brief stop, The prisoners get back on the bus and continue the journey. But then the unexpected happens. A pickup truck appears out of nowhere and crashes violently into the bus, making it go off the road and flip over several times. The vehicle catches fire and Nate acts quickly, removing all the prisoners through the back while pointing his gun. Everyone manages to get out, but at this moment, Chavez takes advantage of the confusion to attack Nate, take his gun, and demand the handcuff keys. Nate says the keys were left inside the burning bus. Preslow tries to regain control by pointing a gun at Chavez, but a knife flies from the middle of the forest and goes through his neck from side to side right after. An arrow hits the bus and everyone runs for cover. Chavez forces Nate to go back into the burning bus to get the keys. Nate enters the vehicle on fire and still tries to save Walter, who's injured inside. When he returns with the keys, he discovers they only work for the handcuffs. The ones for the feet were lost in the bus. Floyd, always impulsive, suggests killing Nate since he's no longer useful, but Chavez is smarter and realizes he needs him. Since Nate grew up in that region, he knows the entire area and can guide the group to a safe place. Chavez makes it clear. As long as Nate is useful as a human compass, he lives. His only chance is to take everyone to a phone so Chavez can call his people. Nate mentions an old forest fire tower that should have communication equipment. Chavez agrees and forces the group to follow him. As they walk through the forest, chained by their legs, they hear strange noises. Chavez orders them to shoot into the bushes, but suddenly Alex appears, the girl who survived the massacre at the river. Alex attacks Nate in a panic reflex, but when he manages to calm her down, she tells her terrifying story. She was boating with friends when a deformed mutant with only 3 fingers attacked and devoured all of them, one by one. The part that interests Chavez the most isn't the danger, but rather the boat she mentions. He orders Alex to take them to the boats immediately. During the walk, the group finds something surprising. An old armored truck, overturned and rusty, that seems to have been there for decades. When they manage to open the back door, they're shocked. The vehicle is completely full of bags stuffed with money. There must be at least a few $1,000,000 there. Floyd is euphoric, shouting that they're rich. But Brandon, always more rational, warns that carrying so much money will only make them slower and more vulnerable. While they discuss what to do, Nate discreetly passes a gun to Walter that he found on the driver's seat, explaining that no one will suspect him because he's injured Chavez, then decides that each person will carry 2 bags of money, including Walter, who can barely walk because of his injuries. Walter tries to use the gun Nate gave him to finish off Chavez, but discovers it has no ammunition. Because of this fatal mistake, Chavez shoots and kills Walter in front of everyone. The group moves forward, each one carrying their heavy bags of money. Along the way, Alex steps on a trap, but Nate reacts quickly and manages to save her. At that exact moment, a smaller mutant appears, who they later discover is the son of the original 3-Finger. The small mutant, who we'll call 3 Little Fingers, attacks Floyd, but Chavez shoots him. Alex confirms this isn't the same cannibal that killed her friends, so everyone concludes it must be a son or relative. Chavez decides to leave a message for the mutant's father, doing something brutal with the body. When they finally reach the boats, Nate does something unexpected. He punctures all of them on purpose. Chavez is furious and beats him violently, but Nate explains his logic. He knew he would be killed as soon as he got on the boat and was no longer useful. By puncturing the boats, he ensured that Chavez still needs him to guide the way and carry the money. Chavez realizes the reasoning makes sense. He forcefully lifts Nate and forces him to take everyone to the fire tower to get a phone. Meanwhile, in the forest, 3-Finger approaches the trap where his son was upon finding only 3 Little Fingers' head stuck on a stake. He lets out a primitive scream of rage. Now he's thirsty for revenge. Back at the sheriff's house, he receives a call from Ali informing him about an abandoned pickup truck near the river, but with no signs of the missing young people. Ali wants to investigate personally, but the sheriff says he'll do it himself. The group continues walking through the dense forest when they find something hanging from a tree. Looking closer, Nate realizes they're the keys to the leg cuffs that he couldn't rescue from the bus. When Chavez approaches to grab them, Willie pushes him so Nate can take advantage and subdue him. But this movement triggers a terrible trap. A giant scythe comes loose and cuts through Willie's entire face. Three Finger emerges from the shadows with that characteristic macabre laugh. Floyd goes into total panic, screaming that this creature is hunting all of them methodically. Crawford asks how they'll continue now that Willie is dead, and everyone is still trapped by the leg chains. The solution is macabre. Chavez and Floyd cut off Willie's legs and carry the body to be able to open the handcuffs later. The group finds an abandoned cabin in the forest. After dropping the heavy bags, Floyd finds a large pair of pliers, and they finally manage to get rid of the chains binding their feet. Now they can move freely. Floyd proposes they split up, arguing it would be faster to find help, but Chavez immediately rejects the idea. Everyone needs to stay together to carry the money bags, and when they meet his people, if each one gives him a bag, Chavez will let them live, and each one will still have a bag of money. Although deeply suspicious of Chavez's intentions, Floyd temporarily accepts as they walk. Brandon whispers to Nate that they've passed the same tree several times. Nate admits he's stalling on purpose, buying time for something to happen. He suggests Brandon escape alone, go back to the road and turn himself into the police when they arrive. But Brandon flatly refuses. No way is he walking alone through that forest being hunted. He promises to help Nate when they reach the tower. After walking for a while longer, they find a tow truck stopped in the middle of the trail. Since Crawford is a specialist in stealing cars, Chavez orders him to go there and get the vehicle running so they can escape. But Crawford recognizes the truck. It's exactly the same pickup that ran them off the road and caused the accident. He refuses to go, suspecting an obvious trap. And he's completely right, because when he takes a few steps, barbed wires appear out of nowhere and trap him. Three Finger, who is hidden inside the truck's cab, starts the engine and begins dragging Crawford down the entire road. The screams are horrible as his body is torn apart by the wires and the ground. After this brutal scene, Nate tries to convince the group to drop the money bag so they can walk faster and have a better chance of surviving. Floyd gets completely nervous and goes after Nate aggressively. But Alex doesn't stand still and gets into the fight defending him. Chavez appears and points his gun at both Floyd and the others, telling everyone to calm down. He takes Floyd's gun, saying he clearly has serious anger control problems and that from now on all weapons stay with him. Floyd tries to attack Chavez anyway, but gets a punch that knocks him unconscious. In the middle of this confusion, Nate and Alex take advantage to run away through the forest. After leaving Floyd passed out on the ground, Chavez and Brandon continue walking. Brandon makes an interesting proposal. He'll help Chavez without asking for money in return, but wants a guarantee he won't be killed when they meet Chavez's people, and wants a gun to defend himself from what's pursuing them. Chavez accepts the deal. Floyd, even injured, wakes up and gets up staggering. He starts walking alone through the forest, bleeding but determined. At the same time, Nate tells Alex that the tower is very close and they need to hurry. Chavez and Brandon, hearing footsteps, decide to hide the money bags in a tree to get them later. Nate and Alex keep running when suddenly Chavez jumps on Nate, starting an intense physical fight. The two roll on the ground exchanging punches and trying to dominate each other. Despite the violent fight, Nate manages to calm the situation by showing they're just meters away from the fire tower. Everyone picks up the pace. Meanwhile, Sheriff Carver finds the bus still burning. He reports the emergency immediately, asks for backup, and says he'll follow the survivors' trail on the other hand. Three Finger returns to his filthy cabin, where he stirs a pot cooking Crawford's head. He grabs some strange bottles and leaves again in his pickup truck. The group finally reaches the fire tower, but to everyone's disappointment, it's completely burned and destroyed. Those who watched the first film in the franchise know this is the same tower that the Cannibal brothers burned to trap Chris, Jesse, and Carly. Chavez is completely tired of thinking Nate is playing with him. He forces Nate to kneel on the ground and points the gun at his head, about to execute him. But at this moment, Leon appears, the sheriff's old dog, who jumps on Chavez, knocking him down. Right after appears Sheriff Carver himself, finally bringing a hope of salvation for everyone. In the middle of the confusion, the sheriff orders everyone to walk toward the police station. But at that exact moment, Three Finger emerges from a tree and releases a huge, sharp stake. The stake falls and goes completely through the sheriff. Alex screams desperately, while Brandon quickly grabs Nate's gun and shoots at Three Finger. Chavez also grabs the dead sheriff's gun. He looks at Nate and makes it clear. If he thought they were leaving without the money, he was very wrong. He tells everyone to keep walking. Floyd, all beaten up but still alive, continues walking through the forest until he finds the money bags that Chavez and Brandon had hidden. Seeing his chance, he decides to leave with everything. When Chavez arrives at the place where he expected to find the bags, he discovers they've disappeared. He immediately realizes it was Floyd who stole them. For his part, Floyd tries to escape, but is too seriously injured to move fast because of the beating Chavez gave him before Chavez catches up with him quickly. Floyd, knowing he can't escape and will die anyway, decides to do something impactful. He grabs all the money bills and starts throwing everything into the river, directly challenging Chavez. But at this moment, Three Finger appears, throwing a homemade incendiary bomb. Floyd dies, burned alive along with all the money that caused so much greed, betrayal, and death. It's almost poetic. After that, the group continues without the money. Suddenly, they find Three Finger's pickup truck stopped. Chavez, desperate and completely crazy, shouts into the forest offering a deal. He'll hand over Alex in exchange for what they did to Three Little Fingers, saying that way they'll be even. Three Finger accepts the deal and takes Alex away. Nate is absolutely furious with Chavez, saying he won't obey his orders anymore. Chavez grabs the shotgun and points it at Nate, about to shoot, but Brandon hits him with the gun from behind, knocking out Chavez. Brandon apologizes to Nate for letting things go this far. Nate immediately goes after Alex to save her. On the way, he finds Leon, the sheriff's dog. Using the animal's excellent sense of smell, he manages to track the path to the cabin where Three Finger is keeping Alex prisoner. Alex wakes up tied inside Three Finger's disgusting cabin. Next to her, she sees Officer Ali completely naked, wrapped in barbed wire. The officer stares at Alex for a few seconds before dying. Soon after, Three Finger enters the room. He stands behind Alex and starts tearing her clothes, apparently with very clear intentions. But at this moment, he hears the sound of a helicopter flying over the forest area and goes to investigate. Brandon, running through the woods trying to find a way out, is surprised and knocked out by Chavez. Chavez continues walking and encounters Three Finger, and the two begin a brutal hand-to-hand fight. Even with Chavez being big and strong, beating up the mutant, in the end, Three Finger wins. He hangs Chavez on a hook as if he were in a butcher shop, and then opens his skull to eat his brain. Nate and Leon arrive at Three Finger's cabin. The place is horrible, with pieces of human bodies scattered everywhere and an unbearable smell. When he's about to leave there with Alex, Three Finger appears and starts fighting with Nate. In the middle of the fight, Leon bravely bites Three Finger trying to defend Nate, but the mutant kills the dog with a brutal blow. When Three Finger is about to finish off Nate definitively, Alex appears from behind and sticks a stake in him, killing the mutant once and for all. After that, Nate and Alex take Three Finger's truck and drive down the road. But to everyone's shock, Three Finger appears again. He manages to climb onto the truck's roof, makes them crash into a tree, and he himself goes flying with the impact. The pickup starts catching fire rapidly. At this critical moment, Brandon appears and pulls the two out of the burning vehicle. But once again, Three Finger gets up, apparently immortal, ready to kill everyone. Nate grabs a metal hook and drives it through his skull with force, finally ending him for real this time. Nate thanks Brandon for coming back to help them. He tells Brandon to simply go away and that he'll inform the police that none of the prisoners survived the accident. It's a second chance for Brandon to restart his life. After that, Nate and Alex stay waiting on the road until the police arrive. When they arrive, the two go in separate squad cars to give their statements. The film shows some time later, where we see Nate returning alone to get the hidden money. When he's about to store all the bags, Brandon appears, who also came after the cash. Brandon shoots an arrow that goes through Nate. He approaches the body before Nate dies completely and says, "Never trust a convict." Soon after, we see a cannibal with a tool behind Brandon, and it's at this moment that the film ends abruptly, with screams in the background from Brandon, leaving this final twist quite bitter. And so ends Wrong Turn 3. What grade would you give this movie? Leave it here in the comments. Below, I'll leave in the first pinned comment the summary of Wrong Turn 1 and 2. Don't forget to turn on notifications to be notified whenever a new Wrecaps comes out. Thanks everyone, see you next time.